Growing an apple tree is much more complicated than simply planting a seed in the ground. The seed from a Macintosh apple, for example, will not always grow into a Macintosh tree. This is because the seed was produced from two sources, its parent tree and the pollen from a passing bee. That pollen might have come from any tree within a few miles of this Macintosh. So if you plant an apple seed, you never know what the tree will look like or what the apples will taste like. To produce consistently good apples, growers use a process called grafting. This ancient technique dates back to 1st century China and Egypt. It involves taking a piece of stem or scion with leaf buds from the desired apple tree and inserting it into a live and healthy apple tree or into a rootstock. The scion is no more than a half an inch in diameter. A cross-section of a tree trunk shows its 5 layers. The outer bark protects the tree from insects and diseases, and it insulates the tree from both hot and cold temperatures. The inner bark, or phloem, carries food made in the leaves down to the branches, trunk, and roots. It has a short life before dying and becoming part of the corky outer bark. The thin cambium layer, the only live part of the tree, has 2 parts. One layer makes new phloem each year, and the other layer, the xylem, produces the tree's annual ring. It is in the cambium layer that the scion is inserted. The light-colored sapwood carries water and nutrients from the roots up to the leaves. The dark-colored heartwood is the oldest, most dense, and strong part of the tree, responsible for both supporting the tree and for storing waste products like oils and resin.
What we have here is a row of trees that we're not happy with the variety, or at least the strain of the variety. This is a row of Cortlands, but it's an older strain. And so we're not happy with it. The trees are a little bit too vigorous. And so what we want to do is graft this row over to another variety. In this case, we're going to be grafting these over to Honeycrisp, which is a much less vigorous variety and more demand. And so we started the process last year. And what we did is we took and cut a couple of branches, the main limbs off, and we grafted a piece of stick here, which is what I'm going to do. And this is, right now, this is a Honeycrisp branch. Everything else around it is still the old strain of Cortland. On the other side, you can see there's a branch that actually looks much better. And so we'll have 3 limbs coming out of that. And so now the vigor that's in the root of this tree is going to be transferred to these branches that took, or that we were successful in grafting over. And these branches now we're going to really take off this summer. And at the same time, what we're going to do is we're going to graft 2 more branches over to the new variety. All right, so what he's doing, he's cracking that. So now at either edge of that crack, he's opening up the bark. He doesn't want to touch the bark if he can help it. He just collected some wood from the Honeycrisp tree. And what he's going to do now is he's just going to carve that wood so that he has 2 mating surfaces. All right. And what he wants to do now is he has to match the cambium, which is the layer that's just below the bark. And that's actually the live part of that branch, or of the tree, in fact, is that little bit of 2 layers of cells that maybe you remember from biology class, a xylem and a phloem, but that's the cambium layer. And he needs to match those from that little twig now to the cambium layers on the tree that he just cut, on the branch that he just cut. He's got to fill all of the voids around where he just did that graft, otherwise it'll dry out and die. So what he's got to do now is just keep the moisture that's inside of the tree and not let it dry out. by coating it with these wax. This is a learning experience for us. We just started doing this a couple of years ago. This was an art that the old timers used to do a lot more than what we do in orchards today. Usually today we just buy trees, but we're trying to learn some of these techniques, and so the people at UMass have been coming out and teaching us some of the old ways of changing varieties on these trees.
Depending on the variety of apple tree, apple growers usually have to wait a number of years before a tree produces apples. Although they can live for more than 100 years, most apple trees are only kept for 20 or 30 years.